Good morning. It's Valerie Ling, clinical psychologist from the Centre for Effective Living, a group psychology and counselling practice in the Hornsby and Hills areas of Sydney, New South Wales. In 2017, I've set myself a challenge to read through a book list derived from other psychologists who recommended books that they thought were useful for their clients to read. And so I'm just reading through them for myself to see whether they're books that I'd like to put on our bookshelf and recommend to our clients. And today I have got this particular book, The Dance of Anger. Now, this is written from a woman's perspective for women. However, gentlemen, if you're ever wondering what goes on in a woman's head when she's angry, this is not a bad one to pick up as well. This is not to say that it's a theoretical book, but it is insight driven. So it will be on the slightly heavier side where it will cause us to think and reflect about our own history with anger, our own relationship with anger, and where it came from, in particular from the early family relationships that might have socialized the way that we feel angry. Anger, I think, in general, is not a very well understood emotion. I think sometimes we think it's not particularly politically correct to feel angry, and we might think that, well, nice people just don't get angry. But in fact, the author actually says this: just as physical pain tells us to take our hand off the hot stove, the pain of our anger preserves the very integrity of ourself. Our anger can motivate us to say no to the ways in which we are defined by others, and yes to the dictates of our inner self. So throughout the book, there's this theme of figuring out our relationship with anger. Is it signaling to us that we're actually just falling into some historical roles of interacting with what people want and expect of us? And is it actually causing us to have some kind of inner tension because it's not something that sits quite well with us? One of the nice bits of this book is that towards the end, she actually starts to talk about anger styles. I really like this. There are 4 styles she talks about: pursuers, distancers, underfunctioners, and overfunctioners. Now, I won't go into detail, but those 4 styles interact with the way that we feel angry in terms of the way that we respond, and may not always do us favors or get us the kinds of outcomes that are beneficial for us. So I read it in under a week. It was slightly heavier because you do have to stop and think, but it would be one of those books where I say it's not a bad one to pick up, especially if you're trying to get a handle as to why you might be feeling angry and sometimes not realizing what the deeper triggers might be. Okay, have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.